Okay, I also don't know what just... Just go ahead and get started on it like this. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Hey, this morning we're going to talk about the...
Forgot to do the fader.
We're going to talk about the NPR thing. We're going to talk about the thing with Elon Musk tearing into the BBC reporter and the whole tag of state supported media by the BBC, all of which
is great,
and NPR.
And yeah,
which is fantastic. And NPR just straight rage quit.
We're leaving Twitter. Oh man, all 12 of your fans.
Twitter.
All 12 of your fans are so sad.
They even made a point of saying, "Look, we only get like less than 1% of our traffic from Twitter." Like, so this is not a major move for you. You just want us to pretend like it is. I see. I understand. So, yeah. But let me start off with a sort of an apology. Yesterday we had a bit of a hiccup. We still aren't entirely sure what happened.
Yeah, it literally showed us from there's a monitor over here that you guys can't see. And yesterday this monitor said we're streaming. Like all of the little things that happen and glow and light up and all that. We're all glowing and lighting up, and we appeared to be streaming. And
then all of a sudden I saw Matty Parks in the chat over there saying, "No show this morning, guys?" Like,
look, dude, we're here. We've been live for like 15 minutes.
We've been talking for like 15 minutes, yeah. But anyway,
of course, it's the most brilliant show we've done, and like
it was amazing. We republished it. You should go watch it. It's good stuff. We talked about the Dylan Mulvaney thing, and and developments on that. Like since we talked about it yesterday morning, Bud Light has lost something in the neighborhood of $7 to $8 billion in market cap.
When love Jeremy or hate Jeremy, but I watched a video on the quartering yesterday, somewhere around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and at that point they'd lost $5 billion in market cap.
Right.
So if it's gotten worse,
yeah. As of this morning, I've seen conflicting reports saying anywhere between 5 and 8 billion. No, there's Benny Johnson says 7 billion in one day. It was they've gotten their asses absolutely handed to them. And
Bering had a great video, so how to destroy a beer company. Have you watched any of the interview with the VP who's like, well, Bud Light had an image problem. It was very fratty. And it's like, oh, so you actually hated your target demo and decided that you would educate them. And they said,
right.
Oh, I'm stupid. I'll just switch to a different piss water. So yeah. However, Elon Musk asked a reporter if he liked the big black cock. Oh my god! Like seriously. Okay, you could make jokes about, oh, are you Elon Musk fanboy? Blah 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 blah. Look, I mean, yes and no. Okay, but let's just be honest. Okay, if you put Elon Musk in a room with 10,000 people, there's really good odds that he's literally the smartest person in the room.
Yes.
and okay, why would you try and out troll Elon?
Right.
You know, there's an expression that they have.
He's smart. He's also a troll with Asperger's.
Right.
That's a dangerous concoction, my guys. Hey, real quick, I got to address this comment. Park said yesterday's show was good. Bud Light went on suicide watch. That's right. We had to pull out a cot and stick him in the mop closet. Now we're keeping a 24-hour NCO watch party on him.
Well, there's only a 41% chance that Bud Light will kill themselves.
Oh no, they've done it. Well, here's the thing: they went so trans that you have to treat them like women now. Because the fact of the matter is, men die from suicide at a much higher rate than women, but women attempt it at a much higher rate than men.
So men are literally better at everything.
Men are better at everything, even quitting.
Yeah, yeah. Don't believe me? Just ask the left, and they'll tell you. Yeah, and then Riley Gaines, who was on Eric Erickson yesterday.
Yeah,
dude, in a live format in an interview with Eric Erickson, the young lady acquitted herself quite well.
I've watched a couple of interviews with her, and she's very sharp.
Yes. Yeah, there are women out there that can be absolutely gorgeous and intelligent, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of the blue hairs
They just can't swim faster than 6.5 foot tall men.
Oh man, that's a neat trick right there.
Oh yeah, I have the best wife ever.
Boy, that's some ASMR right there too. Like,
yeah, buddy.
Pouring it right there.
You are welcome.
Yes. Okay. All right, but as much as we could talk about all of the things, and I want to talk about all of the things, because really I feel like there was some brilliant discussion to be had in yesterday's episode, I get the feeling we're going to get to talk about it some more.
I do too, yeah.
So, let's do this, man. Let's get into the...
So we're going to talk about this interview that Elon had.
You were involved in moderation, and they just say there's not enough people to police this stuff, particularly around hate speech in the company. Is that something that you want to address?
Talking about? I mean, you use Twitter,
right?
Do you see a rise in hate speech?
I mean,
but just a personal anecdote. Like, what do you? I don't.
Personally, for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content. Yeah, personally.
That's why I'm asking for examples.
Right.
I'm asking for examples. Okay, Thomas Sowell is the GOAT on this. Because, I mean, I love old Thomas Sowell videos. You'll get some, if you've seen the one with the white lefty Democrat with the big hair that comes in and she starts talking about racial disparities and she's arguing for affirmative action, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And every time she makes a claim, you know, black men are disadvantaged by X, Y, and Z, Thomas Sowell immediately says, compared to what?
Right.
No, that's his go-to. Compared to what? And it's very similar to what Elon does here. This guy breaks out this rhetorical nonsense of, well, there's hate speech is rising on Twitter, and Elon says, okay, give me an anecdotal example. Just an anecdotal example.
Yeah, an anecdote is supposed to be like the weakest form of argument, but Elon's like, no, go ahead and give me the shittiest argument possible, and I'll agree to your premise.
Yeah,
and
just give me the weakest thing you can think of. And I want you guys to take this to heart. When we're talking about the whole, hate crimes are on the rise, trans hate crimes are on the rise, anti-black hate crimes are on the rise, stop Asian hate. Well, boy, there was a tag that backfired. Stop Asian hate. Oh, hey, look, 99.9% of all hate crimes committed against Asians are committed by black men between the ages of 17 and 32. Well, what do you know? Funny story. But there's such a dearth, right? This basic marketplace economics. There is such an absence of actual hate crime and racism and bigotry of that sort going on in this country that they have to invent it. The market has a demand, right? People want to see hate crime.
Yeah.
That's why the algorithms shove this shit forward. Tim Pool's been talking about this for years now. One of the things that has dramatically affected political discourse in this country is the algorithms generally discovered, oh, hey, people like watching videos or reading articles about cops getting it wrong. And they like watching videos and reading articles about LGBT stuff, and they like the word racism in articles. So the more of those bad words we can put into a headline, the better. And the result is that there is a market demand for bad actors. There's a market demand for racists, bigots, bad cops, etc., etc., etc. And the algorithm looks for the most ism, the most phobia that it can cram into a headline and shoves that out there. And because it's creating that demand, someone will rise to meet the profitable supply of that demand. That's why you get your Jussie Smolletts. That's why you get your Mattress Girls. That's why you get your Rolling Stone running an article that a fraternity raped a woman that I don't even think the victim ever existed. At this point, the article was so flagrantly false. That's why we've seen such a dramatic rise in hoax hate garbage. Right? You know, a few years ago, there was a brother that said, oh, I was attacked by racists at my college and they drew a swastika on my wall with feces. Turned out, video caught him. He drew the swastika backwards, because apparently he's never seen one, with his own shit and called it a hate crime. He ended up getting charged with filing a false police report, as he should, frankly, at a minimum.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You accuse somebody else of robbery and you know you're lying. You should be charged with robbery. Look, we've already got felony murder.
Yeah.
Fine. Well, let's have felony false crime. So, look, but it's even worse than
when you file a false police report, what you're doing is you are sending armed men to potentially murder someone.
Right.
Right? Think about swattings, for example. I mentioned Tim Pool a minute ago. They've been swatted like 18 times in the past 18 months. And several of those have been very, very high-level responses with, you know, dozens of police officers showing up while they're live on air with celebrity hosts and actual political elected officials. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene was on, and the next day they got swatted. That is literally a person using a lie to attempt murder. And the murder weapon in that case is the police. The police officers themselves become the murder weapon, and the attempting murderer is the person who made the phone call.
Well, the problem has gotten even more pernicious. The market demand is so great. It's not enough that let's just accept that Derek Chauvin was a bad cop. Okay. Let's just accept that. Doesn't mean he was racist. But why was that so outrageous? Oh, it was a white cop sitting on a black guy's neck. Let's just accept that the McMichaels were overzealous pieces of shit. Well, it's not enough that they were overzealous pieces of shit. They were racist. It was white Southern dudes.
It's necessary that they were racist.
And it culminated with Sergeant Perry. But if it had been anything other than a Black Lives Matter protest, I don't even think he would have been charged.
Right.
But now he's convicted of murder.
In fact, if it had been like a Stop the Vax Mandate protest, he'd have been commended.
So
he would full on be the every talk show celeb du jour. This is what democracy looks like.
So exactly. So when you bring it all back around, and it's like, okay, well, Mr. Big Black Cock Reporter, you work for an industry that has deliberately pushed this narrative forward, and you've now got somebody who's smart enough to be able to push back, and he's going to allow you to present your case. And
And you don't have a case to present. And
Yeah,
Elon does something else in this clip that's very important. Okay, so I'm going to back it up, and we're going to listen to it from the beginning again.
Moderation, and they just say there's not enough people to police this stuff, particularly around hate speech in the company. Is that something that you want to address?
Talking about? I mean, you use Twitter,
right?
Do you see a rise in hate speech?
I mean,
but just a personal anecdote, like what do you do? I don't.
Personally, my for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content. Yeah, personally.
That's why I'm asking for examples. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I don't.
Can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore. Because I just don't particularly like it. I only look at my followers.
Right there, can you name one example? Can you name one example? He asked the question twice. Right, he continued to push him, and he's caught the reporter here in an out and out lie, because the reporter said, "Well, here's my anecdote. I see more of that stuff in my For You section." And Elon asks, "Give me one example," right?
Well, I don't use the For You section anymore.
One of those tweets. Well, I don't use that section anymore. But
hold on, Buttercup.
You
Which
just
is it?
said that's where you see the anecdotal hate speech, and then you said, "I don't look at that." So you're a liar.
You said you've seen more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and
how did you see the hateful content?
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen that For You hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
You can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet, and yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's false. People will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a single example, and you can't name one.
Right, and as I've already said, I don't use that feed. But
how would you know that?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content, and then couldn't name a single example.
Right, and as I said,
that's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how would you know there's hateful content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks.
See, and he keeps going with that for a little bit, and that's actually really important, because you note about halfway through, the reporter is already starting to say, "Well, I don't think this is getting anywhere. Let's change the subject." No. You just got yourself BTFO'd into caught in a fucking lie. And we're going to go down that road. We're going to go ahead and take and dig into that. Like we talked about yesterday, the rules for radicals thing. If you want to sit here and lie, we will Socratic method the fuck out of that. Dig you all the way down to the bottom of that grave, and you can stay there.
You know what, that's my imitation of a BBC reporter.
You know what he sounds like? He reminds me of. You've probably seen a bit of this. Merrick Garland. Ongoing case.
Yeah, it's funny how they choke and sputter. Like, you move outside that NPC programming, and like that's the loop. That's how you know you're not only dealing with a leftist, but you're dealing with an NPC leftist. Oh, I have a claim about thing. Oh, fine, let's discuss thing. Well, but the thing. Okay, fine, let's discuss thing. Oh, but the thing. But you know what? I'm just gonna block you. You're hateful.
And I don't have the other clip pulled up that I wanted to share. So a little bit shortly after that exchange, they go on to the thing about Twitter now labeling NPR and BBC as state-affiliated media. I think it's state-affiliated, state-sponsored, something like that.
Well, because it
has not been labeled state-controlled media, which would be totally appropriate and correct. But it has been labeled something. I think it's state-affiliated media, and that's why NPR just rage quit Twitter. Alex says Elon got lucky that it wasn't Piers. Honestly, I think Piers would have been on board for the whole thing with Elon, and I don't think Piers would have. Believe it or not, I've gained an enormous amount of respect for Piers Morgan since he left the United States.
He's
but he's been one to hold like the feminist feet to the fire and to call out bullshit. He did a great interview with Ben Shapiro, and they had some very interesting, after the one where he got just obliterated.
yeah, get
But
wrecked.
Elon and the reporter go on to talk about the state affiliated media thing,
Government funded media.
government affiliated media, and the reporter says, well, and that's just false. Well, like the BBC, for example, we're not funded by the government. We're funded by license fees. I'm sorry. You're funded by license. Yes, that's how it works in England. You pay a license fee, right? A television license fee that funds the BBC. Here's the thing about that license fee:
Who enforces that license?
men with guns, who are the government.
Oh, that's
That's
right.
how that works.
Well, hey man, Planned Parenthood's, it's only a minority of your tax dollars going there. It's anything and everything like that. So you've got somebody that's going to force me to pay for a thing.
Okay, so yeah, exactly. Alex says, I don't disagree with you. I think Piers Morgan believes in what Elon is doing, but Piers wouldn't have been nearly the pushover this BBC guy was. And Alex, I'm gonna counter you with, I also think it's the case that if Pierce is the kind of guy that if he was going to go into an interview with Elon Musk and make the accusation that hate speech has been on the rise since Elon took over Twitter,
He would have
come with
examples.
examples.
Yeah,
He'd
he
have come
would've-
with receipts.
Yeah, that just shows you what absolute weak sauce this BBC reporter is. Like that. How do you not understand, an adversarial interview to know what's the logical follow-up question?
Right.
Okay, sure. Give me an example. Right? Because if I say that left-wing violence is on the rise, I can give you an entire tranuary trove of examples. And even the bank shooter, like, gee. Guy was on SSRIs and had his pronouns in his bio. I'm going to assume that was not a right-wing dude.
Right. So this one, let me make sure I got it. Hold it. Yeah, it's this one.
But yeah.
So this is the what's his name?
They're going to quit.
This is
Twitter.
Will Lee being interviewed, the NPR chief operating officer, being interviewed by Brian Sullivan on, CNBC. And we're
All
not
right,
gonna
so
watch
as we
this whole
mentioned,
clip.
Musk now all-
I'm gonna skip ahead a bit. So I want you to listen to what
What's
he says.
going
here.
on here?
Thanks, Brian. Really, this isn't about Elon Musk. It's about independent journalism. And when Twitter decided to call us state affiliated and then to change it to government funded, that just questions our independence. And that's unacceptable to us. It would be a disservice to our audiences who expect fact-based journalism from us.
Okay, I want you to pay attention here.
sup-
Boom. They're running a headline that says government funding accounts for less than 1% of budget.
So they're government funded.
So they are getting government that is funded, right? Less than 1% of budget. We're going to come back to that though.
support a platform and to
I want you
be
to pay
active
attention
on a
to that.
platform that essentially undermines what it is that we do. So we think that it's just, we have a responsibility to our audience.
But does it, Will, I
additionally-
would say this as a longtime NPR listener,
You don't say.
Planet Money, All Songs Considered. Does it undermine you? For me to see that on my Twitter feed, does it really matter that much? I'm just curious. I don't think it does.
It does because Brian, every single post that would go out would say we are government funded. And by their own definition, which I can
Okay.
But you are. See, money's
Let
fungible.
me back up. It said less than 1% of our budget is from government funding. But that's not none. And that's an important distinction. And listen closely to what he says.
read to you, which says government funded, funded. And by their own definition, which
By their own definition, right? Twitter's own definition.
every single post that would go out would say we are government funded. And by their own definition, which I can read to you, which says Government-funded media is defined as outlets where the government provides some or all the outlets funding and may have varying degrees of government involvement over editorial content. That is simply factually untrue.
He's lying.
That's literally factually.
That's literally factually true. He just said some or all. Okay, less than 1%, but not zero is some.
Right.
Definition satisfied, and not does, but rather may have some editorial control. Okay, let's take a moment right now and just assume that we cannot offer any evidence whatsoever that NPR has been controlled editorially by any agency or portion or active agent of the United States or other government. Let's assume for a moment that there's no proof that any government-affiliated anything has ever made an editorial decision.
You mean like on Twitter with the Hunter Biden laptop story?
Right. For example.
Just as an example.
That still satisfies the exact definition that he just gave you. Some or all, less than 1% but not zero is some, may or may not exercise editorial control. Okay, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't. I'll grant you that as generously as I possibly can, and you're still a fucking liar.
Well, the problem when you have something that is government funded, okay, is the government no longer has to threaten you directly. Okay.
Correct. If you want more of a thing, you subsidize it. If you want less, you tax it. Well, for example, if you want shitty people eating crappy food and watching large screen televisions on lawn furniture, you give them welfare. You subsidize them. If you don't want people earning money and climbing the income ladder, then you tax income.
So, but where I was going with it is once you start it's how it works, period. If you go to work for, I don't know, say a company that shoots houses for real estate companies here in Atlanta, that company,
yes,
you do what they fucking tell you to do, and you don't just do what they tell you to do. You go ahead and make a whole basket of assumptions about how they want you to conduct yourself as you do the things that they tell you to do. Okay, so in that vein, how many libertarians do you think NPR hires? How many conservatives?
Are you kidding? NPR doesn't even hire Democrats because they're too far right wing.
I mean, how many? Oh, I don't know. Let's say Baptist pastors do you think they hire?
Right.
How many ex-businessmen do you think they hire? And so forth and so on.
How many heterosexuals do you think they hire? The evidence would suggest none.
Right. Exactly. So
I rest my case.
Yeah. So when you put all that together,
you are welcome.
So when you put all that together, and I think you can even bring this back around to a thing that we've talked about a lot before with the amorphous warfare and how it has moved down through the generations. I go back to Obama and Lois Lerner probably quite literally never had a conversation that said, hey, I want you to just kind of slow down all these applications for Tea Party's tax-exempt status groups. Nobody had to tell Lois Lerner to let that stuff get caught in the bureaucracy for several months at a time. She understood that it was, well, part of that basket of assumptions. See?
Right.
And so if you go work for NPR, the very same NPR that, wanted you to know you need to get that vaccine to stop the spread. Well, to slow the spread.
Because if you get the vaccine, you cannot contract the disease.
Well, and then you can't spread the disease.
Oh, wait.
Well, but you'll be less likely to die from the disease. Unless you're a young man who plays sports. And then for about 6 weeks after you get the shot, maybe don't perform any rap songs after smoking a big giant joint. Just maybe a thought. Have you seen any of these? How there's this whole like niche of like rappers that go out and just in the middle of their set they just fall off the stage.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh, he had the shot 2 weeks ago. Oh, did he? Oh my.
But we're not saying those things are related. We don't have any evidence.
I mean, look, to be fair, if you do a bunch of drugs and then go do a rap song, that might happen anyway.
Correlation doesn't equal causation. It doesn't equal causation, but it does strongly suggest that causation has a correlation that merits investigation.
So yeah, tagging something as government funded, they're offended, not because it's a lie, not because it destroys their hard-earned woe is me credibility. They're mad because it's accurate. And it's not even a terribly unreasonable definition. Some or all of your money comes from the government, and because of that, they may or may not have a degree of editorial control over the content that you publish. See, everybody has bias. And that is I really try and press this in on people. Everybody has bias. As soon as you decide what story to cover and what story to not cover, you've already exercised an editorial bent. And that's fine. Okay, but a lot of people don't know this, but like newspapers in this country used to be called like the Chicago Democrat, right? The San Antonio Republican. There was that's why
they didn't suddenly become unbiased or even attempt to be unbiased. They suddenly started changing their names to present the veneer of unbias in order to attempt to penetrate the opposing target market.
That's why I find somebody like Tim Pool more credible than average, not because Tim Pool is infallible, but because Tim Pool is like when he came out and he said, yeah, I totally donated money to I want everybody to know for this election cycle, I've already donated money to Tulsi Gabbard. So anything that I report on, well, he ended up voting for Donald Trump. You know, there's your irony. But no, look, I'll just go ahead and tell you, I donated to Tulsi Gabbard. Right? Okay, good. You know what? Good. Thanks for letting me know. It's the people that try and pretend, man, no, we're just the facts. It's straight and down the middle. And it's like, well, what are you, an algebra teacher? Because that's just the facts.
Yeah.
Okay, but if we're going to talk about current events and we're going to say that, I don't know, John Fetterman went to the hospital for depression. Sure thing, buddy. I would prefer to know your bias. It matters. You have more credibility, right. and it's only guys on our side that are like, no, I am a libertarian, I am a conservative, and you get it. And frankly, you get it a lot with Christians. Christians will tell you, yeah, I'm totally coming at this from a Christian perspective. Okay, good. I'm glad I can understand your worldview and why you process information the way that you do. But these absolute morons that are like, no, we're performing a public service. Oh, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Oh, okay, buddy. Sure thing, pal. But it's fantastic. Ballistic alchemy. There we go.
So okay, I want to talk about this little bit of article real quick, and then we need to get going because I got to be in Monticello shortly. So Elon, in another part of the interview, and I want to talk about this particularly because of the mask and vaccine conversation we just had. COVID misinformation, Clayton said, you changed the COVID misinformation rules. And has BBC changed its COVID misinformation? Musk retorted. Not its misinformation rules. Has BBC changed its COVID misinformation? Let's not forget, BBC, just like NPR and all the rest of the media, reported that the shot made you
immune,
completely 100% immune, and made it impossible to transmit the disease. And we now know, just like we said then, that was false information. We made that assertion early on based on the mere fact that never has any vaccine been 100%. 99.99999 is pretty damn good.
Yeah, you could treat that like 100% functionally, but to say that...
But a high percentage of success rate?
is not perfect.
We had an IUD in place when we had our fourth baby. Let me tell you something. A high percentage guarantee is not a perfect guarantee. So Clayton deflected the question back to Twitter, pointing out that under Musk, the platform had done away with the labeling of COVID misinformation. COVID's no longer an issue, Musk explained, as the BBC held itself at all responsible for misinformation regarding masking and side effects of vaccinations. Musk went on to slam the BBC for allowing itself to be put under pressure by the British government to change the editorial policy. This is not an interview about the BBC, Clayton replied nervously, adding that he couldn't speak on behalf of the company and its editorial policy. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's
because basically what it says right there is I'm not allowed to speak about this. I want you to think about those words.
Why are you not allowed
I am
to
not
speak?
allowed to speak about this.
You ain't got a license for it. You got a license for that editorial?
You got a license?
No, I don't have a license to editorialize. Look, going forward, I mean, we should seriously just replace BBC with Big Black Cock, because that's how hard they got smacked around here by, ironically,
BBC
by a really pale-skinned African American. Like the memetics here are so perfect.
We should just start calling Elon Hatchet Harry.
Yes. And then he beat him to death with a 13-inch rubber cock. Like it's...
Did you take sugar? No thanks, Turkish. I'm sweet enough. All right, we got to put a pin in it right there. Thanks for watching, guys. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.